On September 11, 2012, Jeffrey Weinhaus met with Henry Folsom and Scott Mertrans outside a gas station in central Missouri. Weinhaus was under the impression that he was to receive back his computers, which Folsom had stolen from his property a couple of weeks prior. Yet less than 30 seconds after exiting his vehicle, Weinhaus lay on the ground in a pool of his own blood, shot 4 times by Henry Folsom. Weinhaus was helivac from the scene, later recovered, and is now caged, awaiting trial. Thus far, the situation can be described as a classic case of police employees protecting their own. You see, Weinhaus is an outspoken critic of government corruption, and Folsom and Mertrans happen to be employed at the Missouri State Highway Patrol. The lack of transparency surrounding this incident includes the fact that the investigation was done in-house. Both the shooter and the investigators work at the Missouri State Highway Patrol. The fact that statements made in the press release about the shooting differ objectively from what's heard on an audio clip of the incident that was later leaked. The fact that Weinhaus claimed to have video recorded the incident from his vehicle, yet the existence of the footage or even the camera itself has never been acknowledged by the investigators. The fact that, contrary to an explicit Missouri state statute, Folsom failed to notify Franklin County Sheriff personnel of his actions executing a search warrant.
This episode of Cop Block is brought to you by freekeen.com.
For over 16 years, Weinhaus, who goes by the handle Bulletin Man, has been sharing his recounts of double standards perpetuated by so-called public servants through print, a website, and videos. The tagline on his bulletin he publishes says, "Go ahead and take one. The man is not looking," so that gives you a little insight into the direction he's coming from. On August 16, 2012, Weinhaus posted the video, "The Party's Over," in which he expressed discontent with the rampant corruption he saw from those employed in the criminal justice system. Weinhaus called for people to occupy the courthouses on September 17th, the 226th anniversary of the Constitution's ratification.
The America that I grew up in is long gone. Now, the good news is it can be restored, and it can be restored peacefully if the powers that be just simply walk away.
About a week after that video was posted, Weinhaus was visited at home by Henry Folsom and Scott Mertrans, who worked out of Missouri State Highway Patrol's Troop I, based in Rolla, Missouri. Folsom expressed to Weinhaus his concern over the August 16th video and asked to enter the dwelling, ultimately seeking the computers. Weinhaus rightly refused. Why were Folsom and Mertrans from Troop I, 2 counties over, visiting Weinhaus? If he'd in fact done something wrong, why weren't troopers from Troop C, who claimed jurisdiction in that area, on the scene instead? Further, if Folsom's intention when he arrived at Weinhaus's residence was to take the computers, why did he not already have with him a warrant? In fact, the mainstream media has claimed that a search warrant for the computers existed at that time. This background blurb was included in multiple write-ups published at emissourian.com. Investigators with the Highway Patrol's Division of Drug and Crime Control went to serve a search warrant August 22nd for the seizure of computers belonging to Weinhaus based on alleged threats directed at law enforcement and judicial officials in Crawford County. Judy Weinhaus, Jeff's wife, who was home at the time when Folsom arrived, noted, "Jeff insisted on a search warrant before they could enter our house. It took them 4 hours and asking several judges before they got one." Several judges? The warrant must have been pretty flimsy if several judges refused to sign the request, something that tends to be rubber-stamped. Folsom returned to Weinhaus's property with the warrant and left a short time later with less than 35 grams of marijuana, morphine, for which Weinhaus claims to have a prescription, and Weinhaus's computers and other electronics.
Why would there take his cameras and computers over a little bit of marijuana? The marijuana and computers and cameras have nothing to do with anything.
Notwithstanding the obvious fact that mere possession of cannabis or morphine doesn't harm anybody, and a signature, even from a man who wears a robe, cannot make an unjust action just. It seems like Folsom just wandered away into the house to take the computers, which contain years of his documentation. A few days later, Weinhaus published a video detailing the experience.
And they basically came and stole my First Amendment right the other day by seizing my computers because they smelled pot. So I guess my computers were smoking pot. I really don't understand the logic of that.
This is Carla.
Hi Carla, how are you today?
Just fine, thanks. You?
You know what kind of trouble, Carla? I've got a problem with some of your troopers there at the Highway Patrol, and I was hoping to speak to the colonel about it. My name is Jeff Weinhaus. I'm a reporter, and they basically have came in and seized my computers and cameras, and have taken away my First Amendment right. Wednesday the 22nd, Sergeant H.J. Folsom.
I will be sure and pass this on.
Later that day, Weinhaus received a call back from Kyle Marquette, an employee of the Missouri State Highway Patrol.
Basically, what I wanted to tell you all is you need to fire that man, because if you don't, we got a big problem. You know, I've went to court today to try to get this straightened out, and I couldn't get before a judge. I couldn't get no redress, and I really don't know where to go from here. He alleges I made threats, but you know, it's nothing I haven't done before. I've been doing this 16 years, and I kind of go off on a tangent every other year or whatever. Yeah, I'm going to do everything I possibly can. We will be suing whoever we can sue because of all this, but it's really beyond the court system. I really believe the court system is flawed and is basically a fraud. But you know, I mean, I don't know what else to do here, Kyle, other than just tell you guys what was up and pray that you do the right thing and relieve Mr. Folsom of his command, or of his duty, because he's put you guys in a very precarious situation.
Weinhaus, still without his computers, the tools of his trade, for 2 weeks, wrote and sent a writ of replevin to Folsom, and to help bring more transparency to area media and friends.
He was asking the Highway Patrol to return his computers and his property by the end of the business day on September 11th, 2012.
In his own words, therefore, good cause being shown, petitioner requests that said property be returned into possession of 2360 Hwy K, St. Clair, Missouri, 63077 by the close of business September 11th, 2012. In the alternative, it will be confirmed that the Constitution of Missouri has been suspended, and that this body is acting in a de facto capacity under the color of law and is a fraud upon the Constitution. In a video update, Weinhaus again reiterated that his property be returned by September 11th.
Don't always believe what you see, my friends, especially nowadays. But believe this is the greatest country on the face of the earth, and one day very soon we're going to be able to turn that flag right side up, because we're not going to be in distress anymore. We have every right, duty, and responsibility to replace the government today because they have failed their chief design. And when they can come into the office of the publisher and steal his computers, they got to go. So I'm begging you all, just go peacefully. I'm not trying to shut down the whole court system. Only thing I want is everybody who's in there on a non-violent, victimless offense to walk out. Charges dismissed, case closed, with prejudice. They walk free, and everybody's on probation for those things. They walk free too. You shouldn't have to pay to stay out of jail. That's extortion.
When September 11th did roll around, Weinhaus was contacted by Folsom, who arranged to meet him at a MFA gas station just south of St. Clair.
They told him that they were going to give him his computers and cameras back. Jeffrey was on top of the world. He felt like $1 million because he called several people and said, hey, they're going to give me my stuff back.
Unbeknownst to Weinhaus, Folsom had another intention. Earlier that day, Folsom had gotten an arrest warrant based on property he'd stolen from Weinhaus a couple of weeks earlier. Specifically, possession of under 35 grams of marijuana, possession of a controlled substance, morphine, and the claim that Weinhaus's August 16th video equated to tampering with a judicial officer. According to Bill Harlan, Crawford County Deputy Sheriff, at least one FBI employee was also present. Within seconds of emerging from his car, Weinhaus was shot.
Jeffrey was here 2 days before on 9/9/12 and talked to me and my boss and basically said that they were going to kill him. They were going to do something to him. He said they had been in their vehicles hanging out around his house, around him, and said that he was in fear for his safety.
Highway Patrol officers say they had opened fire during a confrontation with an armed man. He's a man known for his criticism of government, who's had run-ins with troopers in the past.
Now, this happened on Hwy K in St. Clair, Missouri, in Franklin County, about 50 miles from downtown St. Louis.
I'm told that he was meeting two troopers, a prearranged meeting, but he came armed with a gun.
Missouri is an open carry state. It's not against the law. I mean, we get people that run through here all the time that's got guns just right out in the open. You don't have to have no carry permit here. You just do it. Same thing with Jeffrey. They don't want you to know that he had a 22 because it makes them look foolish. You don't go start a revolution or a shootout with the cops like they would have you believe with a 6-shot revolver 22. It just don't happen. You only have a 22 if you're scared, and that's all you have.
The Highway Patrol says that he got out of his car and was armed and then started walking toward the troopers. There was a confrontation and then the troopers opened fire.
One bullet hit the right side of his head, deflected off his temple, breaking his orbital, and exited at the top of his skull. A second bullet grazed his neck. A third bullet broke a couple of bones in his shoulder, and the fourth bullet just missed his heart, punctured his left lung, and lodged in his back. Weinhaus was helivaced 50 miles northeast to Mercy Hospital in St. Louis. The fire department had to wash off the blood. The next day, Sarah L. Eberhardt, an employee of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, issued a press release about the incident. Concise as it was, it brought to mind some questions. No video of the incident has been acknowledged. If the meeting was potentially volatile, why not proactively film? If Folsom believed Weinhaus to be dangerous, if a shootout was thought even remotely possible, why did they not show up with backup? If the warrant was to be served, why would the troopers have wanted to meet in such a remote location? After the incident, calls were made to the Missouri State Highway Patrol to solicit more information. Though Al Northrum, the so-called public information officer, was eventually spoken with, he was not too forthcoming.
Public information?
Yeah, hi, I want to let you know I'm recording this call for my records, but I was just hoping to talk with somebody about Jeffrey Weinhaus, the incident yesterday.
Yeah, we're not going to give you any statements that you're recording. There's nothing new I can give you on your recorded device right there, other than what's out right now. And I appreciate your concern and all your willingness to ask questions, but once again, this is an ongoing investigation, and surely you must understand that we have to take care of that first.
Well, I have no problem. I have no,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
No, hold on,
Bye-bye.
sir. Hold on, sir. 3 days after the shooting, Mike Arthur, one of the few who have continued to vocally support Weinhaus, was visited by Adam Carnell, a Cuba, Missouri police employee. Watch this video to learn his story in detail, but briefly, it was a situation not unlike that which Weinhaus had mentioned had happened to him. Carnell had manipulated a firearm that wasn't his to create a situation to bring about a desired conclusion. In this case, getting Arthur, who's dubbed a felon, to handle a loaded firearm.
I'm not on no probation, no parole. I've not been found guilty of any crime, but yet they have 5 felonies against me. And before I could bond out of jail, I was to be fitted with this tracking bracelet. And they charged me $75 a week for this, $300 a month, which is basically blatantly ransom and stealing, but all because I'm friends with Mr. Weinhaus, and I'm trying to do things, to make sure the man gets justice,
This practice, squeezing the support base of someone targeted, is frequently employed by those wearing badges. Weinhaus was released from the hospital. He went to stay with his brother to continue his recovery. A hearing was held based on a motion submitted by Weinhaus's then lawyer to reduce or drop the 3 charges levied at him. Weinhaus outlined that in over 50 scheduled appearances, he'd never missed a court date, that his roots were in Missouri, and that he was not a flight risk. Weinhaus also noted that he had never reached for his weapon, and that his hands were in fact raised over his head when he was shot. The motion Weinhaus had submitted to drop his charges was taken under advisement, then he was ruled against. Weinhaus had strolled into that room on his own. He left with men wearing Missouri State Highway Patrol badges and has been caged ever since. The day before Weinhaus was due to have a bond hearing, Parks went in front of a grand jury and got them to indict Weinhaus on 5 threats, all felonies, including resisting felony arrest, 2 counts of armed criminal action, and 2 counts of attempted assault on a law enforcement officer. The indictment used that day by Parks indicated that Weinhaus harassed or intimidate Judge Kelly Parker, a claim that differentiated from that put forth on the August 22nd search warrant filled out by Folsom, which claimed that Weinhaus made threats against judicial officers and prosecutors of Crawford County. Why the change? Besides outlining these 5 new charges, Parks presented no evidence to expand on his claims of resisting, criminal action, or attempted assault. Yet he got the indictment he was seeking. He was accepted at his word. His case moved from the Associate Circuit Court to the Circuit Court. And by the way, Parks, the prosecutor, was the same person who on August 22nd had notarized the search warrant Folsom used to enter Weinhaus's property and take his computers.
This episode of Cop Block is brought to you by freekeen.com.
Weinhaus's motion for a new judge to get away from David L. Hovind was granted. The new man in the black robe, acclaimed neutral arbitrator of justice who nevertheless subsists on wealth others create, was Gail D. Wood. There was a bond reduction hearing, but Parks wasn't there, so Wood continued the hearing. The bond reduction hearing was held. Parks was there this time, as were 13 individuals wearing Missouri State Highway Patrol outfits and 4 of their friends in plain clothes. Judy Weinhaus testified, stating that since he was caged, he'd missed medical care and therapies that were necessary to his recovery. Wood eventually denied the motion that Weinhaus had put forward to reduce his bond. Weinhaus was told that his 3-day trial would begin on April 30th. Weinhaus was heard on a motion he'd submitted to allow for surety bond. Weinhaus argued that he shouldn't have to pay such a big ransom to get out of a cage, which was set at $50,000, cash only. Weinhaus knew that, were he not caged, he could better prepare for his legal land venture. His motion was later denied. Prior to exiting his vehicle on September 11th, Weinhaus had called his ex-wife, who had recorded the call. On January 17th, Cop Block posted this audio clip that was leaked, which disclosed some major inconsistencies with a press release about the incident. Concise as it is, the press release is one of the only pieces of information about Folsom's shooting of Weinhaus that's since been released by the Missouri State Highway Patrol. In it, Sarah L. Eberhardt claims that the troopers issued verbal commands for Weinhaus to move his hands away from his pistol. Let's listen to the audio clip. Do you hear any verbal commands given to Weinhaus ordering him to move his hands away from his pistol?
All right, this is Jeffrey's encounter with the Missouri Highway Patrol to get his computers back.
Good, how are you? You got the gun? Why I got the gun? What you got the gun for? Alright, well, I'm authorized to get down on the ground. Get on the ground. Get down on the ground. You have to shoot me, man.
You heard his car door. They exchanged pleasantries. Aside from their report, they did not ever tell him to take his hand away from a weapon. They never told him to drop a weapon. They never told him he was under arrest. They never told him any of that. They just, hey, what do you got the gun for? What do you got the gun for? They were exchanging pleasantries, you know. I mean, like I said, they all knew each other.
After the shooting, Weinhaus's ex-wife put the audio clip on his Facebook wall. Though she took it down almost immediately afterwards, she was soon visited by Mike Houston of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, who wanted to confiscate her computer. After some back and forth, the computer was used at a college campus. Houston made at least 6 copies of the audio and left. The following day, when Weinhaus's attorneys made the 4-hour drive each way to get a hard copy of the audio for themselves, they were trailed by Missouri State Highway Patrol vehicles the entire way. It seems pretty clear, based on other attempts to solicit information.
Custodian of Records Office, this is Denise. Can I help you? Until the case has actually gone through court and is disposed of, we could not release that from this office.
That the Missouri State Highway Patrol investigators would prefer that such objective documentation of the incident not exist outside their ability to censor. When on the road with the Cop Block tour, in-person attempts to follow up on Weinhaus's situation were stonewalled. Personnel at Troop I headquarters in Rolla, Missouri, where Folsom and Mertens work from, would not comment. It's in reference to the Jeffrey Weinhaus incident from September 11th.
If that's what it's a reference to, this is what we need to give you. These are the people that you need to contact, reference that incident. And this is what we've been told to tell anybody with the investigation.
We're not going to be answering any questions or comments about this case. I'm going to direct you again, as we've been directed by the prosecuting attorney. If you have any questions, just contact him.
Crane, Kinley, and Hwy K pointed to a memo that said they cannot release any reports or comments on this case, and directed all questions to Robert E. Parks, the same Parks who notarized the search warrant of Weinhaus's property and who is now acting as prosecutor in his case.
Okay, good day.
Why would Parks, who's working to cage Weinhaus, be the gatekeeper of information related to the investigation? It sure doesn't seem like he has any incentive to be impartial. Still, a visit was paid to Union, Missouri, to the Franklin County Courthouse to speak with Parks. Only he wasn't having any of it. In fact, he said he would not comment on the case until the conclusion of the trial. Just how then is one to get information related to the incident?
This is an active case, so there's nothing that I can discuss with you at this time until after it's resolved.
And do you know when that'll be? Like, you mean until after the trial in late April?
Right. Definitely, I can't comment on the case till after the trial is finished.
Okay. You don't see a conflict of interest, the fact that the investigation is...
Thank you very much.
Well, I'll walk with you to court. I'm heading down myself, but you don't see a conflict of interest, the fact that the investigation was done by Troop C employees, the same outfit for which the shooters work for? I hope if you have a change of conscience, you'll check out our post, copblock.org/Jeffrey Weinhaus. It has some info on there, just trying to make sure people don't get away with stuff because they have badges. Personnel working for the Missouri State Highway Patrol Troop C office in Weldon Spring, where those who supposedly investigated the September 11th incident worked from, also remained tight-lipped.
So do you see where I'm saying that doesn't make sense?
I kind of see myself in a catch-22. I talk to the police, and they tell me that they were instructed by the prosecuting attorney to see the prosecuting attorney for information, and I go to him, and he tells me, I'm not telling you anything. What would you do?
Well, I think what the prosecutors told you from what Peter just said is, at some point I will release some information. I had never heard Peter say that the prosecutor said I will never release information. He said at some point. So that's kind of where we are. So there's a difference between never and at some point. And so that's kind of where we are.
We don't have the answers to it. They're in that report and the prosecutor has it, and he has requested that all media inquiries and all questions from anybody, any member of the public, are sent to his office.
Johnson, Wolf, and none other than Al Northrum, the public information officer who you earlier saw had hung up on a caller in September, would not share any info.
And if you guys think of any other info you want to share, there's a submission tab at CopBlock, or you can message me at pete@copblock.org. I'm definitely trying to bring about some justice in this and other situations. So,
very good.
All right. Do these interactions make sense? Do they align with the lofty tenets claimed by the Missouri State Highway Patrol? On February 21st, Weinhaus had another hearing to try to get surety bond, to lessen the ransom so that he could be freed to better prepare for his trial. Keep in mind that while caged at Franklin County Jail, he's allowed only 2 15-minute visitations per week. This motion was denied. However, at the hearing, some new information came to light. Park stated that Weinhaus's August 16th video had caused the governor's office to call a colonel in the Missouri State Highway Patrol and request an investigation. Is the Missouri State Highway Patrol supposed to be at the beck and call of the governor? Is it correct that the hierarchy of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, there's one colonel that's Mr. Replogle? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. There's only one colonel at that outfit, Ronald K. Replogle, yet he denies having any recollection of such a call. Also at the hearing, Weinhaus disclosed that on September 11th he had a camera recording from his vehicle. He questioned, why don't they have video? But that went unanswered. In addition to that camera and the cell phone he had used to call his ex, which was in his pocket, the police took from his person his spy watch, a .22 caliber revolver, his wedding ring, his glasses, and a second cell phone. On February 22nd, Weinhaus received a letter response from Gary F. Tolke, Sheriff of Franklin County. It objectively communicated that Folsom had failed from the very beginning to follow the rules that he purports to enforce. According to Missouri Statute, Chapter 43.2, the members of the Highway Patrol may request that the prosecuting or circuit attorney apply for, and members of the Highway Patrol may serve, search warrants anywhere within the state of Missouri, provided the sheriff of the county in which the warrant is to be served, or his designee, shall be notified. Based on my reading of this Missouri Statute 43.2, it says that it's mandated that the sheriff of the county be notified of that sort of action. And was that done on for the August 22nd?
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. There is a statute that requires that, and we were notified before the warrant was issued.
Some claim that Weinhaus's investigations showed corruption all the way up to the governor's office.
Jeff's my friend, man. He needs our support. He's being railroaded, run over. They're not following any laws. They're not, I mean, they're going to try to persecute this guy, and they tried to assassinate him. And like I said, it has to do with his computers and cameras, because this man had dirt all the way up to the governor's office.
Others believe that Weinhaus's situation just demonstrates the flaws inherent in the so-called justice system, with actors circling their wagons to protect their own. Whichever is true, it's clear to me that Weinhaus has thus far not been afforded transparency. Instead of waiting and hoping that justice will finally emerge in trial, be proactive. Transparency is a powerful disinfectant. Anything you can do to help advance that desired end is much appreciated. Some ideas include: get attention on his situation, share this video or the meta post, copblock.org/Jeffrey Weinhaus, or create some content of your own. Make calls. The court of public opinion is powerful. Take a few minutes to call Weinhaus's captors, to ask questions and share your thoughts. Write to Jeff. His address is listed in the video description. Donate so that Weinhaus can make calls to a support network, get stationery supplies, and maybe even eat a little better. And if you're a lawyer in Missouri or have knowledge of the legal land variation in that area, Weinhaus would love to hear from you. The more effective we are in stopping a wrong in progress, the less likely such damage control will be needed in the future. Visit copblock.org/Jeffrey Weinhaus for a complete background. If you have more information related to this incident, please do let me know at pete@copblock.org.
You know, I mean, there's no justice. It's just us. You know, I mean, and that's been Jeffrey's slogan for 16 years. You know, there's no justice. There's just us.